Hi, this is Tom Brevoort, and you are listening to the Captain America Comic Fans Podcast.
Greetings, Cap fans. Welcome to episode 140 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. This is Rick Verbanis. I am your host. And as always, I am joined by the best gosh darn co-host out there. Bob, do you ever get tired of me saying that?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
His name is Bob Lucius, and this is the part where I do the greeting and change it up. Oh, Bob. But you see, it's not me. It's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying.
Zombie.
You got it. Zombie,
yeah.
zombie.
Who doesn't like a little Cranberries action? Right.
All right. Now, why did I pick that one, Bob? Why was that my greeting for you today?
Well, because it starts with a Z.
Yeah, but why? Why am I doing Z? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, why does someone just pull a Z out of their butt?
Well, first of all, that sounds painful. And second of all, because we're going back to Dimension Z.
We are going back to Dimension Z. Castaway in Dimension Z is the story, and we are covering today Captain America Volume 7, Number 5. And it came out 10 years ago, Bob. It had a cover date of May 2023. So if you were going to a comic shop 10 years ago, this would have been on the stands.
And I was, and it was.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And just a heads up to everybody who's listening right now. Look, if this is your first time listening, thank you. Welcome to the show. Now stop. Because this is part 5 of a 10-part series, and you really want to start at the beginning. So we're going to tell you, go back to episode 121, which is part 1 of this story we're covering. 126 is part 2, 131, part 3, 135.4. And if you did not memorize that, then you know what? That's the magic of a podcast. You could just pause and rewind.
I was just thinking, Rick, you were talking about when this came out in 2013. It was on the racks. That was the time, when I shortly after I had gotten back into going to the local comic book store in Monterey, California, after my son was born. And that was the catalyst for me to get back into collecting, thinking that someday, this is definitely something that he's going to want to do with me.
Oh, yes. We all thought that, right?
Yeah, I'm going to start, collecting some now just to have some extras in addition to the ones that I collected and carried around all those years that I could pass on him. And of course, this series.
How'd that work out, Bob?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. Yeah. And by that, I mean, not at all. But yeah. But, it's funny. I was talking to my wife yesterday. And because, I got a copy of A Next number 4, the first appearance of American Dream.
Yeah.
And
you know who that was inked by, Bob?
Oh, man. I can't remember now.
Yeah. Somebody, it was a Scott Collins.
Scott. I thought it was Scott Koblish.
I was kidding. Yes, we had Scott Koblish on last episode, and he talked about how he sometimes gets referred to as Scott Collins at shows.
Yeah. So I got that, and I was explaining to my wife. She's like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." And I'm like, "Well, it was only like a $10 comic," and I decided to get it because, I'm holding out hope for my grandchildren, and if my son has a son, then I've got. Maybe it skips a generation.
Why does your son have to have a son? Why can't he have a daughter?
Well, hold on, I'm getting to that, man. Don't be stepping on my philosophizing here.
Oh, sorry.
So I said, but if he has a daughter and she's into it, I obviously I'm going to give her all the Cap stuff, but I want to make sure I have some female characters too that she can identify with. So of course, I really like Captain Carter, and so I have a bunch. I have all the Funko Captain Carters and
yeah, you do.
And and statues. And I thought American Dream would be a great character for a young girl to look up to.
Have they made a Funko American Dream?
They haven't. They have that Sharon Carter. What is that? The Player Universe or something like that. They have that, but they don't have a Funko American Dream, which I think is a very short-sighted.
Yeah,
I'd buy
well,
that one.
it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, especially I hope it's one of those big, like 13-inch ones.
Oh my God. That reminds me of a really horrible, funny, true story. And listen, if my friends from the comic store are listening right now, they know where I'm going with this. And by the way, we had what episode was it? Episode 95. I had Janson, Seth Talley, and Doug Hogan. We had them on the
Great
show, and they
episode.
talked
Yeah.
about my comic book store, and some of them were customers, some of them were employees. And I don't think we got to this story, but you talked about a 13-inch figure. Well, we had a do you remember the Spawn comic book series?
Yeah.
There was one of the early villains was the clown. He turned into the Violator, which was this really like large creature and very scary looking. And so we had this large Violator made by McFarlane Toys, and it was a big boxed figure that was sitting in the showroom, and no one was buying it. I mean, I just had the one, and it just sat around for the longest time collecting dust. No one wanted to buy it, and the running joke was, we would behind the counter, we would say, "Oh, would you like to see my 13-inch Violator?"
And who said? Did many people say yes?
So there was.
There's always one.
I can't believe it. I'm not telling this story. maybe Seth, Doug, or John can come back on the show and tell this story. But anyway, that's for another day.
Oh shoot!
Yeah. So speaking of sons, I had grand ideas that I was gonna share my comic book collection someday with my son, who was my firstborn, and then 5 years later my daughter came. And then I had hopes for that too. Neither really panned out. They both read comics for a brief period of time, but they do have a love for comic book characters in like movies and TV shows, so that rubbed off on them. And certainly played my share of video games. It was a Marvel Alliance with my son, did that for quite some time. So they have an affection for the characters, just not actually reading comics. And so my son, he graduated college this past weekend, and he was back home. He was home for dinner tonight, and we had him over. And now he graduated with his Bachelor of Arts in theater performance and his Bachelor of Science in Arts Administration. So very, very proud of him. Summa cum laude. So he was an excellent student, and he's got auditions coming up. He's got callbacks coming up. So great things hopefully in store for Hayden. So he takes performing very seriously. So he asked me right before he left tonight, right before we started recording, he said, "Hey, Dad, do you have any rituals before you go on the air? Like, do you do anything? Do you do any voice, warm-ups? Do you do anything?" And I was like, nope. I just go right on. And he goes, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, everybody's different. Some people, they like to do that. Some people just raw dog it.
Raw dog it. Okay. Yeah.
And I just like, did you really just say to your dad that your dad's going to go raw dog it right now?
Well, you can let him know that I have a ritual. I like to, I put my underpants on backwards. So I can just.
When did you start wearing underpants?
Just for the show. Just for the show.
I got
That way I don't have to get up. They're really the more like diapers, but.
you. Oh boy. So anything new and fun or exciting this week for you, Bob?
Well, interesting enough, Rick, I don't know if you're familiar with, I get these emails. It's from Cover Price, which is, one of those companies that sends out, what the FMV, full market value, right? Is it full market value? Fair market value.
Fair market value.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair market value of comics is,
No, I don't get that email. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, some folks have. I don't have a subscription, but they'll send you an email, and basically what it does is it tells you the top 10 trends for that week. What books are moving up and are popular, and then it gives you like the 10 runner-ups. And so I was surprised to see this week, because I get it, and I usually go, I got none of those comics,
Yeah, right.
None of the trend ones, and usually it's tied to movies or TV shows or whatever. Speculation. Yeah.
But it's based on speculation, or is it based on actual sales?
Well, it's based on actual sales, but it's usually driven by speculation, right? So okay. For example, this week, the number 2 moving.
We're going there. We're going to number 2. You're gonna skip 1. You're gonna skip 3. Countdown. What? Like,
yeah,
you're
a
going
lot of
right
Spider-Man.
to 2.
A lot of Spider-Man books, because was it Into the Spider-Verse number 2 is coming out, right? So a lot of books,
right.
Around Spider-Man, Spider-Mans. But number 2 is Captain America 310, the direct edition.
310. Now, wait, is that the first Diamondback?
Well, it does have the first Diamondback in it, and it's also the appearance of the Serpent Society, comprised of Cottonmouth, Bushmaster 2, Ass, Black Mamba, Sidewinder, Constrictor Cobra, on and on and on, right? But apparently, that new Captain America movie's coming out, New World Order, with
the Sam Wilson,
right? Yeah,
Cap 4.
So apparently, these rumors have been stoked by the announcement that the wrestler Seth Rollins. I'm not familiar with Seth Rollins, but anyway, he's been cast as a member of the Serpent Society. So that's what the rumor is. So that book has apparently been going bonkers. Now, that's all relative, of course, right? I mean, it wasn't selling for that much a month ago, but it has gone up 467% over the last 7 days. So
that's a lot.
It is a lot.
What's it going for? What's the average price?
Well, it says that with a high sale of let's see, what does it say here? Hold on. A high sale of $30 for a raw copy.
Oh.
No, that's a lot, for
a raw dog copy.
For a raw dog copy, for a 310, right? I mean, a month ago, you wouldn't be paying anywhere near that.
Now, obviously. I'm not a math major, Bob. What's 467%? What was that before then? Was that, did I make it a $2 comic?
Yeah. That's that you could find that book, probably in dollar bins. If you looked hard enough. Right.
Yeah.
So definitely it was out there. And I know a lot of folks have that in their collections, and they're like, right now they're planning, what are they going to do on their retirements? Because, surely this book is going to continue to grow.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a little
neat.
intro of the Serpent Society / Rachel, was it Leinstein? Leinstein? I can't remember.
Leighton.
Rachel Leighton. Yeah. Leighton. Okay.
You say potato, I say potato. The nice thing is I've been getting this, I don't know, for 2 years or whatever. And this is the first Captain America comic book that I've seen in I think the last one I saw in there was like Truth number 1, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's up there. Is it $30? That's right up there with the Taco Bell special now.
Yeah, neck and neck.
Wow.
So that's going to be a tough
speaking
call for
of the Taco Bell special, we're giving that away. We covered it 2 episodes ago. And it was it's a special limited edition comic,
exclusive collector's edition, right?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That came out in 2009, and they go for like $20 to $30 a pop. And I got one here that I picked up just so we could do the show, and we're going to give it away to somebody from going on to our Apple Podcasts and leaving us a 5-star review. So once we get 3 people to do that, one of those 3 is going to win this comic. So Bob, should we check? Do you think we have any reviews?
I would love to think that we do, Rick.
But they got that look on your face like don't disappoint me again, Rick.
For something as valuable as that, I would think that when people call now, they're getting I'm sorry, the mailbox is full.
Must be. No, but we actually got one.
We got one.
We got one.
Oh my goodness.
Now this is great because this is number 58. I mean, no, so we were just stuck at 57 for like the longest time. Hadn't got any new ones, so we had to, incentivize people. Apparently my saying what funny voice or accent you want me, or character's voice do you want me to do it in, was not incentive enough. So now us giving away a comic, we got somebody. So shall I read it, Bob?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is from Brett Biesel. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce his last name. Apologize if it's not. And it's 5 stars. And the subject line, the greatest Cap-centric podcast ever? ?
Oh.
I know. It wasn't an exclamation point. It wasn't an exclamation point. It was a question mark.
Huh.
The greatest Cap-centric podcast ever? Okay. I'll take it. Sure.
Okay.
It's a little long. You ready?
I am ready.
You're about to say, that's what she says.
I have been ready for weeks.
Months, really. All right, here it comes. I just discovered this podcast and the related Facebook group and can't believe I've been missing out. I'm already 134 episodes behind. Since discovering this podcast, I've been listening any chance I get. This is a must follow for any Captain America comic book fan or anyone who just wants to learn more about the character, who just so happens to be the best comic book character ever, in my opinion. I'm a diehard Cap fan, and I've read Cap's entire canonical series since the beginning of the Silver Age. Yet I learn something new every episode and have an even greater appreciation for things I may have missed. Rick and Bob's passion for all things Cap shines through and engages the listeners in a way that makes you want to just keep listening. Their interviews with Cap creators from all eras of Cap's history provide insight and behind-the-scenes info that shed light on the pivotal moments of Cap's history. I can't wait to keep listening to this podcast. I'm hooked! !
Well, that's what I'm all about, Rick. Shedding light.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Brent. We appreciate you putting that on there, and you are entered into the contest to win the Taco Bell Captain America special edition. We get 2 more, and one of you lucky 3 are gonna get this comic.
This is so exciting.
It is. Bob, I mentioned we had Scott Koblish on last episode. I forgot to mention there was special birthday last week. June 9th would have been George Perez's birthday.
Yes.
And I wish I mentioned that because he did talk about working with George and his special relationship, doing that and learning from George. So I'm sorry I failed to mention that. A couple other birthdays this week. Like if you're listening today when it comes out, it is June 14th. Paul Kupperberg is celebrating a birthday today.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, he mostly was known for DC, but he did some Marvel. He did do Captain America 240 back in 1979. One of his very few Marvel comics, actually. Also celebrating a birthday tomorrow, the June 15th, which is actually my son's birthday, is Neil Adams, legendary comic book artist. And then finally, Bob, here we go. June 18th would have been Mark Grunwald's birthday.
My goodness. Oh, my goodness. Happy birthday to all those wonderful creators.
Yeah. Talk about some legends right there. I mean, those are some serious names in the comic book community.
Well, Rick, I don't want to brag, but I have heard people refer to us as legends in our own minds. So,
Well, that's true. We are.
yeah.
100%. And maybe one day Brent will add an exclamation point and replace that question mark.
We can only hope for an upgrade on our punctuation. Yes,
indeed. Oh, and by the way, we have a special guest on the next episode. So stick around to the end of this episode, and we will reveal who that will be for our next episode. Excited about that. Mm-hmm. So, Bob, should we get to today's comic?
Yeah, we should probably do that.
Uma pausa no seu podcast para falar sobre a beleza, essa força poderosa que nos move. No Grupo L'Oréal, nós criamos a beleza com sustentabilidade. Utilizamos em nossas embalagens 85% de plástico PET de origem reciclada. 65% dos ingredientes vieram de base biológica ou derivados de minerais abundantes. Grupo L'Oréal, nós criamos a beleza que move o mundo.
Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira, pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
All right, Bob. For today's comic book, Captain America Volume 7, Number 5, as I mentioned before, has a cover date of May 2013. It actually had a release date of March 20th. And the creative team, mostly the same, but we have a few changes. We have the writer Rick Remender and the penciler John Remender Jr., but instead of being inked by Klaus Janson, it is being inked by Tom Palmer and Scott Hanna. Colorist is Lee Luridge, letterer Joe Caramanga. We mentioned his name not too long ago. And editor Tom Brevoort. Bob, would you like to hear a solicitation for this one?
Oh, I would.
All right, we actually have one. The odd war of Dimension Z begins. Zola's terrible experiments on the indigenous creatures give birth to a terrible new foe. No flesh escapes the patchwork. Captain America vs. Jet Black, with the fate of Ian in the balance. A young Steve Rogers must help his family to survive their worst year of the Great Depression. But how far will he go? Interesting, Bob. That last sentence, I don't think that's in the story.
Well, maybe they got ahead of themselves.
I think they did. I think they solicited something and it didn't come through.
Well,
anyway,
that happens to me all the time on the weekend.
I hear they have a pill for that.
Oh, goodness.
Bob, you want to describe the cover to our listeners?
I would, Rick. I would. So it's a bit of a busy cover, right? But it's got three really important characters on it. We've got, of course, Captain America in Dimension Z. And so he's not doing so well here on the cover, right? We see that he's actually on his knees and his uniform is torn. I mean, we can see through his uniform and his knees, and he's clutching at his chest. And of course, he's got his long hair and his beard. He doesn't look well. And then we
mask off. Yep.
Yeah. Mask off. And then we see Jet Zola, Arnim Zola's eldest offspring. And she's looking fierce in this. And she is
the way you said that, I almost thought you were gonna say she's looking fine.
I would never do that.
So you're gonna wait to the interior page.
Strictly professional. So she is, of course, wearing her full body black Is it a leotard? What is that? What is that called?
I don't know, Bob, but is
I-
it skin tight?
It is skin tight, right? And
Mhm.
it's got gold accents in different strategic areas. She's got a little bit of a red half cape on, and shoulder pauldrons. She's got that headset on that looks a little bit like a Loki thing going on.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's got her two, what are they? I think they're called Omni staffs, right? These are her weapons. And with one of them, she is striking down, attempting to strike down Captain America. But Ian Rogers is interceding between them.
Yeah.
Small little guy, but he's got this lightning sword that the Frocks, I think he got that from perhaps the Frocks.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, he prevents her from striking Rogers with that Omni staff. So, and he's got a very determined look on his young face. So it's a great action cover. We got to ask ourselves, when is this happening? Right? We got to see this action.
Yeah, no, very well put. So Bob, I just, professionally speaking, where does she like to grip the staff?
Well, that's a personal question, Rick. But we're talking about the cover. Yeah. So I mean, she's 3/4 up. I don't know, a quarter up. I don't know. She's holding each one differently. If you know.
Yeah, she is.
In this picture. So they're interesting weapons.
They are. Not as interesting as Ian's, though. That's
true that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a lightsaber but not a lightsaber because it's more like it's like a lightning bolt.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks like Thor's lightning. I mean, not Thor, Zeus's lightning.
Yeah, something like that. Now, I think I speak for most comic book fans when I talk about how I was not a fan of the way they did the covers for Marvel, because what they did at the top, there's the Captain America logo, and has America is probably like 3 times as tall as Captain, and it's got the red, white, and blue stripe going through. But where is the information? It's on the bottom, Bob. It has a red strip across the bottom, says "Join the Revolution," and it has issue 5. When you're looking through a back issue bin your long box, you're trying to find an issue number, you have to pull the whole comic out, to see the number at the bottom. I think I speak for most comic book fans, if not all. That's annoying.
Yes, it's true. It is. It's funny they didn't think of that, right? Or maybe there was some method to the madness. That they figured,
I don't know.
Pull it out. Once you pulled it out, then it's yours, right? You're keeping it.
And what's even worse is when they put it on the back cover. And they put the barcode on the back cover, and then you put it in a bag and board, and then you're like, oh, now I have to take it out of the bag and board to figure out what issue this is. Or if you're like me, I used to own a comic book store, and we had our little gun up at the register to zap things. You have to take the comic out, to get the barcode on the back. It wasn't very well thought out.
Yeah. I do like the fact that the art at the top of the book is unencumbered, right? It's not obstructed in any way, but it hardly compensates for the fact that it causes these aggravations when you're trying to find the issue you're looking for.
Indeed. Aggravations, 100%, Bob. Aggravated. You wouldn't like me when I'm aggravated. All right, let's get to the comic. Now, Bob, one of the things that I think you do marvelously is you do the previously on. You've been doing it for this series, and I think you should continue.
Well, I'd be honored. Honored and touched. Thank you for this.
I am not touching you, Bob.
Okay. Anyway, it's worth a shot. Previously, it has been 12 years since Arnim Zola trapped Captain America in Dimension Z.
Can we pause there?
Pausing.
All right. Sorry. That cannot go just quickly said. It's been 12 years, Bob.
It's a long time.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it in part 4 when it said like 11 years later, right? And you were like, oh, I really want to buy that page. Yeah. Ha ha ha. Same joke you did before when it was like 1 year later. Ha, ha. But anyway, but no, I know we talked about the last episode, but still 12 years, Bob, that's just crazy. You know, like Rick Remender just totally, I don't know. He swung for the fences here.
Yeah. Right. And you got to think, I mean, you know, it's one thing, I think, you know, it moves the story, like it makes a story a little bit crazier, right? Very, very,
yes. And more impactful and more dramatic and more meaningful.
Right. But what it sets up also, you know, for, you know, follow-on story arcs, right? I mean, think of the impact of living survival mode for 12 years, even for the guys capable of Steve Rogers, right? And what that could do to your psyche, right?
Exactly.
The sort of traumatic stress that can create in your mind, right?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I mean, this story stands on its own, but it reverberates.
100%. All right. Sorry to pause, but I just thought that was important to touch on.
In that time, Steve has raised Ian, the infant he rescued from Zola, as his own son.
Okay, let's pause there. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yes, they have survived with the help of the Frocks, Dimension Z natives and enemies of Zola. Steve must find a way back to Earth soon before the implant on his torso, imbued with the virus of Zola's consciousness, takes over his mind entirely. Steve and Ian found a map to Zola's city, which holds a portal to Earth. But Zola has discovered that Captain America is still alive after all these years, and his cruel daughter, Jet, holds Steve responsible for the murder of her brother, Ian.
Murder in quotes, because we all know the truth.
Indeed, yes.
Yep. All right, so that gets us up to speed. So Steve has been struggling during these 12 years, having this Zola virus in his body. It's reading his mind. It's talking to him through his mind. And then physically, you can see it. If he took his shirt off, you could see Zola's face. It's almost like a TV monitor that's been implanted on his body, very much looking like a Zola, to be honest. And so he has been really struggling with this. And interesting enough, this Zola consciousness does not talk to anybody else but Steve, right? It doesn't, well, I take that back. It did verbally talk to Ian when Steve was asleep in the last issue. But what I mean by is, like, he doesn't communicate with Zola himself. He doesn't like say, oh, by the way, we're in this location. Like, doesn't report back or anything like that. It's strictly a virus within Steve's body and head. And he's been struggling with that for 12 years.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think about the impact that sort of intrusion, physical as well as mental, can take on somebody.
Exactly. So this is page 1 of the comic, but we're not going to call this page 1. We're going to go to the next page. I think when the art starts, we're going to call that page 1. So this is a panel page, multiple panels, and it starts with Steve on a flying jet cycle, and he's got a young Ian. Again, he's 12 years old at this point, clutching to the back of Steve as he's driving the cycle, in the purplish skies in the background and the stormy rain coming down. It's nighttime. It's dark. And Steve and Ian are on a mission. They want to get to that portal so that Steve can get back to Earth. And this is the first time in 12 years that they have the coordinates of where to go to. So this is pressing business. And we cut to the inner monologue of Steve. The cold rain, needles and bites. not as cold as the thing growing in my chest. The Zola virus waging a final push on my mind. Please, God, let me hold him back just another few hours, and I'll be home. I can get help. The consequences should I fail. Say it again, Ian. No. Say it. Promise me. The first sign of change. You put that pistol to my head and you kill me, Ian. If Zola takes me, the what? What's the matter? And then we cut to Zola's voice. The virus in his head. Let's test him, Steve. Let's lose control and crash the bike. Poor Ian will be forced to shoot you or join me. Which will the boy choose? Dad, is it Zola? Are you? No, he's trying. It's harder and harder, but I'm in control. I can hold out until I get us. And then I see it out of the corner of my eye. The thing I feared most at the worst possible time. Black smoke 100 miles behind us. The gate home 100 miles ahead. The hard choice. The worst time. Arnim Zola has found the frocks. So, Bob, explain that. What does he mean by he found the frocks?
Yeah, well, I mean, the frocks were hiding, right, living mostly underground, trying to avoid Zola's forces, the mutates. The frocks are enemies of Zola and the mutates, and so they have to avoid them so they can raise their children in some semblance of peace. They're, after all, natives of Dimension Z, whereas Zola and the mutates are interlopers, right? They're aliens to that region. And so it appears that Zola has indeed found where the frocks were hiding and has come for them.
Where they're hiding. Did they come with their tanks and their bombs? And their bombs and their guns?
Indeed. Zola.
Apologies to all our listeners out there who now has the song Zombie stuck in your head.
But with Zola.
Z-O-L-A, Zola. Z-O-L-A, Zola. Yeah, we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to do like the Kinks the next time. Yeah, and there's a big battle going on. And so the frocks are fighting the mutates, and some of them are getting pushed off the cliff. There's big explosions. And then we see up close, think of your families. Do not let Zola's fiends pass the gate of your birth. Kill, Drill, kill. Hunger for that blood. And then we cut to overseeing the battle is Zola with his daughter, Jet Black. The craven who killed my young brother cowers in the depths of the cavern with the women and children. Perhaps he is a coward, dear Jet. Make no mistake, but he is also bloodthirsty. Captain America will not be able to resist the flames of war. Doughboy.
Yes! Sorry.
All right, listeners. You should have seen Bob's face light up. I don't know if you know this. Our longtime listeners know this. Bob's got a bit of a doughboy fetish.
I do. And I'm not ashamed to admit, to the point where, and I think this is why my son often refers to me as Doughboy.
You think that's why?
I'm just assuming that's why.
Because you take copious shapes of various things.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why.
Okay.
Don't pry. Don't dig.
Okay. Doughboy, it is time for escalation of the hostilities. Release the captains of Zolandia. Doughboy, bring murder. I don't know. What voice do I do for Doughboy?
I don't know.
I want to do Doughboy bring murder.
That's what I was thinking. But, and maybe
Doughboy
like,
bring murder. Oh, you mean do that? You mean do that?
just needs a little.
What's the Pepperidge Farm? Not Pepperidge Farm. Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me see if I can do that. Doughboy bring murder.
There you go. That's how I hear him in my head. He doesn't bring murder. He brings mirth.
Go forth with cruelty, but bring me Captain America alive. Now, Bob, explain these captains of Zoolandia. What do they look like, Bob?
Yeah, well, they're mutates, obviously. They're very large, ugly beasts, 4 arms, 4 legs. Yeah, I mean, 2 arms, 2 legs, the normal lineage. And they have very large mouths with very big teeth, but they're wearing garb that is very reminiscent of what Captain America would wear. So they've got the shirt with the stripes and the star, but the colors are off, and they've got
everything's gray.
Right. Yeah. They've got shields, but they look almost like circular saw blades because they're edged, with So I mean, they're a very nasty lot.
And some of their looks on their face, almost look like zombies.
Well, right. And on their forehead, instead of the A, they've got a Z.
Yeah, exactly. And they're almost like no, they're not like Bizarro, but they are just grunting out, war and justice and slavery for all. Well, that's the opposite of what CAP stands for, right? It's peace, justice, and not slavery for all, but freedom. For all. Yeah, right. It's the exact opposite of what CAP would stand for. And so they're going out there and they're just making short work of the Frocks because they are overpowering them, their strength. And at this point, Cap and Ian show up on the sky cycle over top of it, and you see the fire and the smoke behind them, rain coming down. It's a very dramatic picture. And Steve says to Ian, like we practiced, tight formation, stay close, follow my orders, make every shot count. And sure enough, Ian's just firing away as they're crashing down onto the mutates. The Frocks are as much his family as I am. Told me he'd rather die trying to save them than leave them and live. The boy has such heart. I won't fail him. Trained to be a warrior, but he's still a child in danger because of me. There's so many, but he's still firing. Focus on one at a time. Watch your peripherals. Mutates kill drill. Cap has the shield in one hand and a club, like some sort of like a billy club that's bent on the other. Bucky, Nomad, all the young men I've led to battle, this fear's not the same. Ian is my son. Now, I want that to sink in. I mean, imagine fighting for your son, Bob. Right? Like there has to be a ferocity to that.
Yeah, the thing is, with Cap, he's always got self-sacrifice on his mind, but this is a whole different level, right? I mean, this is not just the normal sort of willing to lay down his life for a fellow person, right? But somebody that he's raised his own, for all intents and purposes. It may not be his flesh and blood, but it is his spirit.
Exactly.
In this boy.
The urge to defend him drives me with a fury unlike anything I've known. He will not die today. We didn't make it this far to fail. Didn't make it. And then from the corner of his eye, he sees someone approaching Ian from behind. Ian! But we hear the voice of the virus in his head. Careful, Captain America. The beasts reflect more than just your wardrobe. They are of your blood. And he hits the one approaching Ian with that bar that I mentioned before. And the guy that he hits just turns and just nails him with a fast punch. So eager to taste my oppression? Mutated clones cooked in negatively charged gamma rays, stronger, more ferocious, as you now gather from the broken ribs digging into your lung. You are outmatched. They are bred to kill all humans, and they do not suspect who Ian truly is. You have sentenced the boy to death. And he's getting pummeled. But then the creature turns its eyes to Ian. Your life is not in vain, rodent. I will feast on the nutrient-rich gore of your remains. Okay, that's super comforting. But how are you going to do that without teeth? And then there's a cool panel of you see Ian in motion as he jumps up and then he kicks and shatters the teeth of this Captain Zelandia. And then we cut to Jet Black. And Bob, how would you describe her costume here?
Yes, please. So as I said on the cover, she is wearing this basically skin tight bodysuit, right? That covers her from her neck down to the bottoms of her feet, all the way down her arms into her fingers. Yeah.
But I don't see the half cape you mentioned.
No, apparently that has now been removed, as well as the shoulder pauldrons, right? Those epaulets that she had, the armored pieces.
Indeed. So coming up behind her is it almost looks like a, I don't know, some sort of maiden servant,
Yeah.
And she brings her, she says, your omni-staff, princess. Why are you just nodding your head, Bob?
I like where this is going.
Oh. And she doesn't even look behind her to this maiden because it's beneath her, right? Just hand me it. And she just puts her hand back out to reach for it. No, I will take revenge with my bare hands. Remove the sensory deprivation suit. And she starts to unzip it, Bob.
Oh, my.
Free my skin to read the air. Let this killer of helpless children feel the furious future premonition of my tachyon foo style.
What?
So, Bob, explain her power.
All right. Well, she has omnisenses, Rick, right? So she is able to read, like all, through her skin, through her eyes, through her ears. The senses have a heightened ability to read the environment around here. Now, only one will work at any one time to that heightened sense, but it can be very overpowering, which is why she wears the sensory deprivation suit. But clearly, since issue 1, when we first saw her, she has been trained to master those senses and use them effectively in combat.
Yeah, because we saw her as a young girl. And so she's probably somewhere between that 18 and 20 now. Now this 12 years later.
She looks to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And how would you describe what she's wearing underneath that sensory deprivation suit, Bob? What is she just wearing now as a as a, whatever she,
well,
free to go.
Yeah. Well, there is clearly a lot of skin showing, midriff,
Oh, yeah. I
yeah,
just noticed that.
yeah, her upper torso. So
Mhm.
she has, very little of this black skin type material around her from, mid.
Oh, I'd say she's got a lot of black skin type stuff on her right now.
Well, that's not the parts I'm looking at. So,
Mm,
yeah, a glass half full, glass half empty sort of thing. But definitely she has a lot more skin showing now that she has that sensory deprivation suit removed.
I see. Yes. So it is actually kind of an interesting costume. I think John Romita Jr. here did a nice job designing this because it could have just been a bikini, right? It could
Yeah.
have just been a one-piece swimsuit or something like that. But
Right.
no, it's got long gloves. There's boots. There's these cross strips that go around her legs. There's something that goes up that connects the pieces that goes up her torso and up to her neck. There's a lot of design elements to it. It's actually very interesting to look at.
It sure is, Rick.
And what's a tachyon fu style, Bob?
Yeah, well, her tachyon fu is one of her combat skills, and so using her omni senses, she is able to basically see the future. Very briefly into the future, right? So she can predict how her opponent will move and what they will do, and then therefore get ahead of whatever they're going to do. So it's an interesting tachyon fu. You know what a tachyon is, Rick?
What is it, Bob?
I'm glad you asked. So it is it's a hypothetical subatomic particle that travels faster than the speed of light. So first proposed in the late 1960s. And, it's been used a lot in different science fiction, shows, whatever. A Marvel character has a tachyon power, the Silver Samurai, right?
Really?
Is able to channel tachyon power. And he uses a katana blade. And
Yes,
that
he
katana
does.
blade, right? So he focuses that tachyon power, which he's a mutant. He can generate that internally through the blade and supposedly can cut adamantium. So tachyon was like a big thing back in the period when this comic came out. It was used in a lot of science fiction shows. And so we see it represented here. But this idea that it's a superliminal particle, travels faster than light, means that there could be a possibility that you could read the future with this technology.
Oh,
so
that might
the
just come in
tachyon
handy for
fu.
her.
Yeah,
God bless you.
indeed.
You know what, Bob? I just noticed for the first time right now, pulling away the staff is not a maiden. It's Doughboy.
It does appear to be Doughboy.
Did you know?
Yeah.
Did you just notice that now too?
I did just notice that as well, that it looks like a piece of pizza dough wrapped around that Omni staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Actually, it looks more like silly putty.
Well, I didn't see any newsprint pressed into it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's an eggshell there in the background. And I made you look. All right. So, Bob, at this point, Cap grabs his shield and slams it in the face of one of these Captain Zolandias, which probably are like twice the size of Steve, wouldn't you say?
They're really big. Yeah. I mean, they're very huge.
Yeah. And Steve says, "We're being overrun. Fall back." "Sure. Just let me clear out the 100 mutates in our way," which is Ian kicking his way out. And we hear from off panel behind Steve, "You've broken my family, pig. Now I break you." And here's Jet coming up, kicking Cap in the center of his back, curving, snapping his head back. He's grimacing in pain, and it makes a noise, Bob. "Predicted my sidestep. Nearly broke my back." And then he turns around and he swings his shield at her. And she dodges it, Bob. Far stronger than she looks. Can't afford to let her land another blow. You will never lay a finger on me, great devil. Impossible. Leaped before I even began the attack. Effortless fluidity. Impossibly fast. A hummingbird reading my tactics before I even move. Counters my defense before I have time to adjust. And then she comes up and nails him in the face. You killed my brother! Smart. Sends me to the mutates to open me up, bleed me, wear me down. Zola's daughter thinks I killed her brother. Explains the ferocity. This is personal to her. Impassioned and lethal. As a sea of claws and teeth shred me, I take comfort in her arrival. If I do die here today, she'll care for Ian. That's interesting.
It is. Yeah.
A hummingbird buzz. A fist follows. Beyond fast. Prophetic. 3 hummingbirds. 3 more blows. Moving through mud. She's decades ahead of me. I like that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, you know, Steve Rogers, as we've seen in other comics, part of the super soldier serum allows him to see things faster than normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when he was being asked, like, how do you like dodge bullets? And he goes, well, I just see them faster.
Yeah.
Yet he can't anticipate her blows. And she's just coming. And he says she's decades ahead of me.
Yeah.
That's something.
I also love the allusion to the hummingbird, right? I mean, if you've ever seen a hummingbird,
Oh yeah,
right, its wings are moving so fast that it's just a blur. You can't even detect the motion really, and that must be what it appears to him with his ability to see faster. He can't even see her fists coming.
Yeah, I wish John Romita Jr. drew it that way. I wish there was some blur of punches that were coming in that visually we were seeing the same thing you just described
Right.
that Rick Remender is writing, you know, about the hummingbirds. Now, don't get me wrong. I got to say, this is a feast for eyes watching this battle scene going on. It is because not only is the two of them grappling, but you also see the mutates and the fracks behind them. The rain is coming down. It is quite it's quite impressive, these battle scenes. World goes black. Body won't respond. Swollen spine from the kick. The screams of the frocks echo over the tirade of the woman above me. All I can do is wait for it. Wait for the final. And just as Jet is about to do the final blow on top of Steve, Ian jumps in front of her. And Ian yells out, "Stop!" "What the? A human boy? You're alive." And then Ian goes up and he says, "And kicking." And is that a punch or a kick?
I'm not sure either, Rick. I mean, it seems like an impossibly long arm. So I'm guessing it's a kick right to the throat.
Yeah, it's some sort of the way Romita Jr. draws this. It's something that is a really fast motion. But anyway, it goes right to the throat of Jet and hits her there in a very vulnerable spot. And she probably would have ducked it, knowing her senses, but I guess she was so taken aback that there was this young boy alive, and then making the connection that it must have been her brother. And so she was taken aback. So Steve gets up, and he has a shield in his right hand, and he pushes Ian to the side. Move aside and look away. And he puts his right shield up as if to, I guess, kill her?
I thought that's where he was going with this too.
Another one of Zola's experiments. Another soul twisted, tampered. And she's just choking and gasping. But the next panel, he moves away from that decision. I'm not handing out death sentences on Zola's brainwashed children. And he tells Ian, if she moves, shoot her in the leg. What? You're leaving me to watch her? And then just then, Jet, using her mental telepathy, which I didn't realize was a thing, but she can talk to her dad in her head. Father, hear me. He's alive. My brother is alive with Captain America. How? How could he, when he fled, the smashed tube? How did I never consider this? Of course he didn't destroy him. He took him. Captains of Zelandia, pull back. My son is in the middle of this battle. And then Cap's fighting everybody, stronger than me, slower, relying on Bruce's strength. No training. Keep at them. Once they're gone, the mutates are simple. And it's a cool panel, Bob, because he's got his shield on a tether, and he's flinging it around, hitting multiple targets by holding onto this tether and just swinging it around like a weapon.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
At first, I thought maybe it was one of the arm straps that had broken, and and maybe that's what this is. It seems a bit long for that, but it seems to be what he's doing with it. Yeah.
Have you ever seen this before?
I have not.
It's very interesting.
It is.
I wonder if that's something that Rick Remender wrote, or did John Romita Jr. decide to play with it and add it on his own? I don't know.
It's neat.
Pulling back. Something's wrong. Far from beaten. So why are they fleeing? And then the Zola virus in his head. No, not fleeing, Captain. Recalled. And then the actual Zola is speaking behind Cap as he looks over his shoulder. Your bid to injure me has succeeded. And then the next page, Bob, one huge splash page of a gigantic Zola. I've never seen a version of this before, but it's some sort of battle Zola who is 3 times the size of Steve. And he crushes down on Steve, who puts the shield over the back of his head to protect himself. But you will pay for stealing my son. And the next page, he's just continuing the onslaught. Impaled him in this wasteland. He's right. What I did, so trained to only see the black and white. I took Ian, assumed I knew best. I have underestimated your potential for spite. Rob Zola, knowing his son. Through your self-righteous piety, you are capable of greater cruelty than I, Steve Rogers. And he's just battling Steve and just pushing him around, and he's falling. Finish him, Jet. Show my son how we deal with those who meddle with the house of Zola. And she's got Ian handcuffed behind his back. You're not my father. He is. And just then, Zola turns his face and is angry at Ian. He is a kidnapper. This man cursed you to living this primal and savage existence when you should have been a king. Father, you said you infected Rogers with your consciousness. You said he had survived. He could serve us on hated Earth. I did, and he would. But this crime, this must be paid in blood. Now! And Steve's just laying there, trying to struggle to get up. And Jet cocks her arm in a lethal position and comes up on him. But she says, when our situations were reversed, when he had his chance, he showed me mercy, Father. Why? Why would he do that? Why do I care? And a blast comes from Zola's body and fires on Steve, propulsioning him further down. And Ian yells out, "No! You call this fraudster your father? You have it tampered with, your mind twisted to this delusional egotist's will. You're not his son. You are his revenge. You're not my father. I'm nothing like you. You will learn to be, whelp, if you know what is good for you. Captains of Zealandia, slaughter the rest of these Frox males. Then go down into the caverns, gather the women breeders for bioclay." Next panel, up close on his eyes. Kill the children. So Steve, who had fallen down this cliff into a kind of like a crevice area, he hears the Zola virus in his head. "Wake up, good captain. You've slept in again. To your feet. Time to climb my body to safety." Poor Steve, you lost the battle. Ian is gone. You will still be mine. Time to give up hope. Yes, good. Climb, my monkey. Relish these final moments. For soon I will dominate your body and mind. I will flush out your consciousness like excrement. You can't save the boy now. You failed him. Failed him as your father failed you. Lie down and die. And at this point, Cap has climbed up the side of the crevice to get back to the battle where he sees all the Frox lying there. And he grabs a battle staff. "I will have you regardless of your struggle. Take comfort, Herr Rogers. You had a good run. But one man against the world of Zola? How else could this have ended?" And then Steve takes his chainmail and his kind of pieced together uniform, and he rips it apart to see Zola's face coming out of his chest. "I'll show you." "What are you?" "Stop! No!" "Ah!" And Steve takes the dagger of the battle staff and he jams it into his chest. And we see the silhouette of what's happening. And then a scream of Zola. "My father let his circumstances change him from a good man to a weak one. I am not my father. You will not corrupt me. I'll never give up hope. Never turn my back on those in need. I'll always stand up. And even if I have to kill every damn monster in this place, I'm coming for my son." And then we cut to the last page, which is a huge splash page of a Steve Rogers pulling up his shield dripping blood from his face and dripping fluids from his chest where the Zola face used to be. And then the pouring rain coming down on top of his figure. To be continued.
Holy cow, Rick.
I know.
That's some good stuff right there.
What'd you think, Bob? What'd you think of this story?
Yeah, man, it's been heating up since issue 1, right? And now we're like, what the heck's going to go on now? Zola now has Ian back, right? And Jet has had a moment of doubt, maybe, about everything that her dad had taught her. She didn't understand this concept of mercy that Steve demonstrated when he could have ended her life.
I like how Zola's been manipulating her, right? He says, "Oh no, he's a coward. He's hiding down there." But he's what do you say?
With the women?
No. He said he was like a warmonger, hungry for war, or something to that effect, right? And so the smokes of the fires of war will draw him out. No, he knew that Steve's a hero and that Steve is going to come to try to protect the weak, because that's what Steve does. But he's playing it up as if, no, he's just hungry for war and he's going to show up because of that reason.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's not the impression Jet gets from him. And she hesitates at that moment, and Zola has to take the shot.
Yeah.
So we will see if there's any repercussions for Jet for her failure to act when told to.
It's true. All right, Bob, you go first. Do you have a favorite panel?
I do, Rick, and it may surprise you, but I think I'm going to go with, I think it's maybe the top of page 4. I think I like that one. There's that scene, a couple panels where they're riding the sky cycle. And in this particular one, he's sort of on the running board of the cycle. So he's not riding on top of it, but he's sort of crouched alongside of it, holding on with his left hand, with his shield in his right hand. And Ian is on his back. It's that I love that. The rain's coming down, there's some motion there. And they both look so determined. So yeah. I'm going to go with that panel.
I like that. And by the way, I had not noticed that he was no longer on top of the cycle. He was on the riding board. You pointed that out. This is the first time I'm noticing that.
Yeah, it's a great panel. Like mind owning that one. Yeah.
Like we practiced.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Well, I got it. I have to go with the last page.
Yes.
I got to go with the last page. That full page splash of Steve standing there in the rain, hunched over in the dark rain, with the light just kind of touching on his hair and the top of his body and parts of his face. The water dripping off his body at the same motion, the blood's dripping off his body, the fluids from the machine that was in his chest off of his body. It's a gripping image, one that you have never seen, like Steve before. And add to the fact that he says, "I'm coming for my son." I love that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that. That is a cool page.
That's a whole other level of motivation, right? And he says it himself, right? I mean, he's led young men into battle before, Bucky, Nomad, but this is different. This is personal. Yeah. Well, great panel selection, Rick. But what about your T-shirt selection?
What am I going to put in a T-shirt? That's a good question. So I'm going to go with page 13. And I'm going to go with panel number 3. That's the one where we see Cap with the shield and the tether, and he's swinging around, hitting people.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I think that's a cool thing. Like, I've never seen that before. And let's slap that on a t-shirt.
All right. Slap it.
All right. Okay, Bob. You're a little
Slapping the
excited
bass
about that.
Yeah, I was thinking of that movie. What was that movie with Paul Rudd and the guy from How I Met Your Mother and I Love You, Man?
Oh, I Love You, Man?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's a fun movie.
It's a great movie, right?
Yeah.
Slapping the bass.
A little rush
I love that
action.
movie. That's
Yeah.
a great flick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness. All right. Well, I'm going to go.
And do you notice how much Paul Rudd looks the same in that movie as he does in the recent Ant-Man?
I know. Oh, that son of a bitch.
I know, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go with, I think it's page 9, Rick. It's that one where Cap tries to hit Jet with his shield,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Okay.
But she does essentially a vertical leap in the air, and completely, he completely misses her. I love that panel. It's got a lot of great action in it, and
he's slinging in that too.
Yeah,
he's got the sling there.
He's got the yeah, you're right. He does. Now that I look at it, yeah, he's got that sling there too. So maybe the rivets broke. Who knows? Maybe the handles weren't functioning anymore, and so he had to improvise. But anyway, I'm going to go with that particular panel on a t-shirt.
Why am I not surprised that you picked something that had Jet Black in her scantily clad outfit?
Rick, that hurts. That really does hurt because that's for that reason I felt I wasn't going to go with page 8, that full, it's like a, almost a 2/3 splash.
But you wanted to.
But I did want to. I did
yeah.
want to, and I thought you'd call me out on it. So
So instead I called you out on this one. You're like, damn, I could have had the other t-shirt.
Right. Exactly.
All right, Bob. What are you putting in your time capsule?
Well, this is a tough one, Rick.
It is, right?
It really is. So I'm going with a tachyon foo. For the reasons I mentioned, it seemed to be like everything had tachyons in it back in the late 2000s, second decade of the 2000s. Tachyon pulses, tachyon energy. That Fantastic Four movie with the Silver Surfer, they had a tachyon pulse that Reed Richards used to trap the Silver Surfer. Tachyons were big back then. Tachyon communications. So I think that's just, and there was a big experiment, I think in 2011 at the European Agency for Nuclear Research, CERN, that they supposedly discovered, detected an actual tachyon particle. Turns out a few years later, they determined that it was just a badly tuned detector. And in fact, that they hadn't, but it was in the news back then. And so, I think maybe that might've got picked up a little bit.
Okay. I can dig that. I mean, you shared some things on there I had not remembered or perhaps never knew. So interesting. I learned something today.
All right. Now, how about yourself? What's going in your time capsule?
I agree with you, Bob. This was a tough one. I don't think there's anything that really ties into a time period in American culture or anything like that. So I'm just going to tie something into something that I think it's special and important in the Captain America mythos. So I'm going to go with page 12, and that is panel 1. And that is when Jet realizes that Ian is alive. And 12 years have passed. She was harboring all of this, anger and guilt and all of these other negative emotions because she thought her brother was killed by Captain America. And then here she is seeing her and putting together pieces is that this young boy is her brother and he's alive. And so that is a historic moment for these characters. So that's going in my time capsule.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think you're right. I mean, these are very formative moments in both of these characters, both Jet and Ian, that we will see unfold in the issues ahead, but also in story arcs ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so we'll continue. There's 3 parts left, Bob, and we're going to do this the second Wednesday of every month. So we have July, August, September, and then this long tail story will be over.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it is building up to something big.
It really is. Folks are going to want to stay tuned.
100%. Speaking of staying tuned, Bob, next episode, we are going to have on, I mentioned we're going to have a guest on the show. Bob, we're going back to the Nightcap series.
Nice.
No, Night.
Oh, yeah.
Night.
Yeah.
So for those who may not be familiar, Nightcap series is something that we're doing with our patrons who are at the super soldier level. And if you are a super soldier level, once a year, one of the perks is you get to come on the show and you get to call the shots. So we're going to have one of our super soldiers, James Foley. He's going to return to the show. What? When I say return, what? Yeah, he actually was back on episode 25, Bob. Episode 25, which came out, gosh, is that April of 21? So over 2 years ago.
Wow.
Because we started this in December of 2020, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a long time ago.
I know. We had him on the show as a guest because he won a contest. And so he wanted to talk about the captain's storyline. But now he's going to be back on the show, and I can't wait to talk with him and talk about some cool Captain America stuff. You know, what got him into it, and favorite creators, favorite stories, all kinds of fun stuff. That's always a good conversation when we can have our listeners on the show, and the 3 of us are just going to wrap cap
and have a nightcap.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Do you already know what you're going to have, Bob?
I don't yet, but I know I have a brand new tumbler that I'm going to use.
Oh, is this going to be debuted on the show?
It will be. It will be. Yeah.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm hoping I have the courage to unwrap it before that. Unbox it.
We all know that you like to keep everything in its original package.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How's your Funko Pop collection going?
It's in a package.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. All right.
Even
well,
I have Funko sodas. You
haven't opened yet.
No, I've never opened them.
And they could have the really valuable chase in them.
They could, or not. It's like Schrodinger's cat. It is and isn't.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, they're all chases.
Of course.
Or not.
Yeah. Until you're proven otherwise.
Until I'm proven otherwise, right?
And therefore you'll never be proven otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so come back next episode 141 where we'll have James Foley on the show for our Nightcap series. I'm looking forward to that. All right, Bob. Well, as always, it has been fun wrapping cap with you.
It has indeed. I can't wait till next week, Rick.
All right. He's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbanis, and you. Oh, Bob, I almost forgot. I had to bring it full circle. I totally forgot.
Oh, my goodness. You're right.
So you remember in the beginning, my hello to you?
Yes.
What was it, Bob?
It was the zombie by the Cranberries.
Yes. Now, the lyrics were, but you see, it's not me. It's not my family. In your head, they are fighting. In your head, they are crying.
Nice.
Now, do you understand why I picked those lyrics?
Are you suggesting that's an analog to the Zola virus?
Exactly.
Nice.
It's in Steve's head.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he came to realize Ian was not his family.
Yeah.
It was Zola's family.
Yeah.
and how he may have made a mistake by taking Ian away from his family.
Hmm.
So those lyrics were very pertinent, Bob.
They are pertinent. Yes. Well done. Once again, Rick.
It all comes full circle.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. He's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbanis. And you have been listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.